Welcome to the REROLL Multiple Martial Arts Podcast, where we discuss the intersections between martial arts, society, and culture. I'm Elliot.
I'm Danny.
And Danny, what's been on your mind? What do you want to talk about today?
I think we can start by talking about the recent Conor McGregor fight and just springboard on some things that I was thinking was kind of interesting. It had to do with the way that the different fighters, how they respond right before the fight is stopped or right before there's a determination of who's going to win. And I think I've been catching a pattern. I'm not really sure if it's fair to say that I fully understand or have a definite take on Conor McGregor, but I feel there's a pattern that I've caught on him. And I was curious if you thought it might be interesting to kind of chip away at our observations of fighters, their behavior, what it says about maybe their business savvy or their personal position on fighting or their quote unquote will to fight.
What was your analysis on Conor versus Poirier? Hey.
I thought it was a good fight. At the very beginning, I thought Conor had a good control. His techniques were beautiful. His range, amazing. His kicks, clean. I mean, the dude's got some great martial arts. And then little by little, he got chopped and got taken down and called it. He doesn't quit, but he knew that he was out, and he basically was like, "Stop the fight," you know. And that to me was unique because I've seen this before. When he's losing, he's like, "I'm done." And I think it has to do with, at minimum, that he's a business person. He knows I don't need to take damage. I already lost, and getting hurt more doesn't do me any good. So he's being strategic, and he doesn't play the game that says I will get hurt in the octagon in order to save face. There was a moment in time where early fighters would say, I'm going to die in the octagon. I don't think he's that dude. He's like, I'm not dying in the octagon.
So, for example, if someone usually gets wobbled, sometimes they'll shoot for a takedown, kind of like a Hail Mary, like last case scenario, but he doesn't. He knew his leg was compromised. He got wobbled, and he's like, you know what, this is over. I'm not going to come back from this. Is that something that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I felt like. He was fully aware of everything. And that's what I mean about giving him credit as being a business person, a technician, a professional. That makes sense. Like, he's not there to like just impress people and then get permanently injured. He's well, at minimum, he has a career, and then he also has a family and his own body to take care of. So he doesn't owe anybody anything like that. But I noticed that other fighters, maybe they're not like him. They take punishment to the point that they will be permanently injured.
Oh.
And I wonder if that is something that gives us insight to who they are as people, as fighters.
Like Tony Ferguson, like doesn't want to give up at all. That was him versus Gagey, man. That would have it was hard to watch.
That was brutal. I mean, I felt bad for him. I was like, stop this fight. Max Holloway against the other dude, I forgot who he was. He was getting beat up pretty ugly too. And
Cater.
Yeah.
Max. Oh man, I'm a huge fan of Max after that performance. What a performance! Goodness.
I was like watching the fight and telling the people in the room, like, why doesn't the what you would call it, the referee stop it? And then they were like, no, because he could still fight. I'm like, yeah, but he shouldn't. He's not gonna win.
Yeah, the commentators were saying that, why doesn't the corner just throw it in? Unless he gets a knockout, he's gonna lose. It's just a beating. So, but yeah, it's funny because you're saying that Conor's a businessman, and one of the famous things was when he was getting beat on the ground by Khabib. Khabib's like, "Oh, you want to talk? We're talking now." And then Connor's like, it's just business, man. It's just business. And Khabib's like, yeah, whatever, man. Like he said, he seemed like he was just saying that. Um, Khabib thought that Connor was just saying that so he wouldn't get beat as bad, like a scared boy when his father's in the hands of his father or something like that. I was like, oh man, yeah. So it is very businessy, and Connor does it well. He's not the best right now, but he's still one of the most famous, and people regard him as the best. And so, hmm.
But that's a distinction, and maybe it's a good distinction for the sport. Um, we've been talking a lot about the distinction between martial arts as practice, philosophy, and some of the other spaces that we see it, such as mixed martial arts, and the difference of it. And I think maybe that's something that we can probably identify here, that like Conor McGregor, we've seen him play the game of the profession, which is like, I need to get seats, tickets to be purchased, and I need to create buzz around it. I need to get some type of traction, some spark. And he uses almost any opportunity. And some of them are pretty low, like talking about someone's family, not cool. He didn't invent that. There was this one horrible video I saw with a fighter. I don't know if it's Mayorga. Like he literally grabbed the butt of someone's wife.
That's not cool.
And she's crying. No, it's a horrible video. Like I was thinking, like that dude should have gotten reported for assault, to the police. He shouldn't have fought at all, because this incident happened like during the weigh-ins, like the day before, type of thing. I was like, no, that would have been enough. Pull him off. I don't know how much you get for that, but definitely that should be an assault charge and taken, to the legal system. That's how I would take it. And instead it became part of the banter, like tomorrow I'm gonna kick your ass. And I don't know how this developed afterwards, but the little that I saw, I was like, yeah, this is what they did. They were trying to get buzz. He took it to a place that he should not have. And I feel Conor McGregor has done something like that in the past, but to the point that reveals the distinction between him as a martial artist and him as a professional fighter who uses martial arts.
So, okay, so Conor McGregor as a professional fighter and a professional showman, and knowing how to work a crowd, versus because it's funny, because I've been listening to some of the podcasts, and hearing people like Chael Sonnen, who is also really good at engaging an audience, and how he was actually talking about how certain fighters, for example, like Daniel Cormier, Chael's like, okay, in this situation, he should have said this, and that to hype the crowd, and silence all the haters, or just talk mad trash. But he didn't, and it just, he didn't take that opportunity when he had it. And so there is a sense of, and just like Dustin Poirier, he had the chance to talk mad trash on Conor when he beat him. But he didn't. He took the high road and was nice. I'm like, no, that's not the way you sell tickets, man. And so, even though Dustin won, Conor's still, I guess, still more famous. And so there is that fine line. And I hate to say it, like, yeah, UFC has become a little bit like WWF. I mean, you see some of those fake pushes and trash talk and all that. But I don't know, how does in your opinion, how does a fighter balance that trash talking and respect? Because I still like to see that martial arts respect. I don't, yeah, sometimes when you knock a person out and you immediately hug them, just give that person some space. Let the guy think, give him some space. But what is the balance? Or at least, where do you see that balance?
Well, I was talking to this this guy that I'm working with, and by coincidence, we both had trained in Shotokan karate, and we started talking shop, and then we got into the subject of MMA. His perspective is different than mine. He didn't appreciate MMA. I like it, you know, but his perspective was that MMA was very disrespectful. It was not a martial art. And maybe that's the difference. I don't think MMA is a martial art. MMA as a sport entertainment activity, definitely I don't think it's a martial art. MMA as the space where different martial arts were blended into something that's called multiple martial arts that some people use to fight professionally, could be. And maybe I'm splitting words, but I hope that the context is somewhat clear. So I think MMA can become a martial art. And one of the things that characterizes for me a martial art is the fact that this tradition is rooted in combat. And having said that it is rooted in combat, um, a lot of them are rooted in a military context and expresses the hierarchy and control and discipline that is required to maintain such violence under control.
Wait, you're talking, is this martial arts in general or?
Martial arts in general.
Okay.
Like, for example, why is it that if I take Muay Thai, I bow to my crew and I show respect to my crew? Why can't I just slap them around and play around and like put them in a headlock and just say, I was joking? Because the crew says, you can't do that. If I do that, I lose control of this space. And what kind of chaos would I be left with managing all these violent kids? I don't know. You know, that I want to say this, especially me sounding like I'm doing an anthropology class. I believe there is an adaptive feature built in to traditional martial arts, which shows respect, something that we call maybe humbleness, um, that is part of the control measures. And I feel that MMA does as an activity that is taught in spaces hasn't gotten there yet, and someone is trying to reject it. But MMA as a sport, as a entertainment business, I don't think it needs it. So it throws it away. You can hug at the end, but if you don't hug, nothing happens. So I think that's the distinction.
So, okay. So we're talking about training and the will to fight, and so, I mean, yeah, heart is a big thing. I think. Where do people draw the line with? Okay, yeah, where do people draw the line with like throwing in the towel, or keeping on going and risk getting beat up, or, I mean, where do you think that how do people balance that? Because, like you said, we have to be really careful of things like CTE. A lot of these former professional fighters, they're it's really sad. And I've seen some documentaries on some of these people who suffer from amnesia and short-term memory loss, and it's really and they're not being taken care of. It's like NFL again.
For me, it has to do with what we were just talking about earlier, the distinction between martial arts and the philosophy, the Budo, if you're into like a Japanese martial art, and
Swallowing the ego, pride.
yeah, and the Bushido, the Budo or Bushido practice versus the business sector, which is about something different. And when I heard you pose that question, I think about the distinction between fighting for your life and saving face as a entertainer, as a professional. And it's fair to say this. Some people are not able to separate them or don't want to separate them. It's one and the same. Some people will say, I will die in the ring. others know that there's a difference. Like if I say I don't want to fight anymore because I want to be able to be okay for my family, I may be called a loser, a clown, a scaredy cat, whatever you want to call me. And maybe I lost face, but I understand that in the long term, I wasn't fighting for my life. It wasn't a real risk. It's one that I chose to commit myself for a paycheck. And at any point when I knew the outcome was against me, like there is no way I'm getting out of here without more injury, I should be able to say, dude, good one. You beat me. I'm out.
So I think a lot of this is rooted in maybe hyper masculinity. Like I need to be tough until the very end, even though and keep face until even if it risks my health. Would you say that it is rooted in because it is there's a lot of tough guy attitude, a lot of machismo that's not healthy at the end of the day for anybody except for the people being entertained. And yeah, I see sometimes I see fighters who get beat up, and I'm like, just the corner needs to just throw in the towel, just do it.
Yeah, I feel there's a little bit of, well, just the entanglement, right, between how the sport is an expression of the larger social context that it belongs in. Because I see even like um, women fighters go into this moment where they are just getting beat and no one's tapping out. They're gonna take the punches. They're not, because you can tap out just because someone's beating you, so that like when I saw the fight with Conor McGregor, when he falls down, look at his arm. I almost feel like he's kind of going, dude, stop it.
Mm.
Like he doesn't get a tap out from his TKO, but the way he falls and the way his body, he wasn't even protecting himself. He was more like, this is it. We stop it here.
You don't think he got knocked out? He just kind of got wobbled really hard and was.
Well, he got hurt, but he got hurt. No, he didn't get knocked out. In fact, you can see him sit up right afterwards, and it's almost the same face when he fought Khabib and he tapped out. He knows how to call it quits. And I'm not calling him a quitter. I'm saying as a business person, he knows this is it. I know that he beat me. Why should I take more damage
Dang,
just for the fun of it? I don't think so.
dang man, you're getting that kind of gives me Connor a little bit more respect and some more like long-term vision, for his own career. Because hearing a lot of other people say, yeah, I'm glad he got knocked out, that loud mouth, and sure, sure, why not? But um, I the another person who I think sells really well, similar to Connor, is Nate Diaz. He's a top tier. He's a good fighter, among the top tier, but he's famous, and even though he hasn't fought in a year, he still brings in money and knows how to talks trash to everybody on Twitter.
Well, I think the idea of talking trash is probably part of that same type of trend that you were identifying, whether like, what is the role, not is what or not what is the role, but how does MMA stack up or compare to martial arts as a field? And in martial arts, very few schools and traditions appreciate or even teach um, to be boastful, to be cocky, to be arrogant, to be a bully. None of them.
Is this a UFC thing then? A very American thing because one championship is more humble, it's more warrior spirit, and less much less trash talk, a lot more respect. Then, but that is also MMA. So should we make a distinction between the different, I guess, MMA camps or organizations that promote different things?
I think we should be aware that MMA is a sport slash business, and that these people have to learn to comply to expectations. I don't think they should, but I feel that they feel the pressure too. So that we saw um, people transform their images, become characters like in the entertainment wrestling venues to sell tickets. And I'm not naming names because I don't want to give that dude any credit, but everyone knows just how silly the dude was, like ridiculous. Like he started paying people to pose with him, you know. Anyway, all of that stuff. And for the people that follow, you know who I'm talking about. But I'm just kind of still tripping on the fact that I felt embarrassed. Like at one point, I told everyone around me, I am not paying a single dollar to watch this dude, even though I wanted people to beat him. I was like, I will not pay, because I was so upset that the sport had gone into such silliness. It felt silly, and what felt silly was that the other fighters were responding. Like if I'm a clown in makeup and you start laughing, I'm
Yeah.
I'm doing my job. But if you tell me like, dude, stop being a clown, take off that makeup, I might just go, you're right. There's another way of talking to you. Um, and I think that's where we're at. We're at this point in the sport where many of us that follow the traditional martial arts that take people to the sport get a little bit frustrated. I mean, for example, like when I tell you that if I go to my crew and just not ask, act disrespectful, he won't let me train.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I say, but I'm gonna get people to buy the tickets to that next Saturday amateur match, you'll be like, dude, get out of here. I don't want that kind of student in my dojo. They don't call it dojo, but in my gym. I can't think of where they would fly. Nowhere. Even if I went to like a wrestling camp, I'm pretty sure the coaches want respect, and they want respect among their peers too.
I think you're right. I think there definitely is. I don't mind the hierarchy. Um, partially, I was training with I had a guru. Okay, when I was training Kali, Filipino martial arts, and he said that he puts a sense of he has to, like you said, he has to have that hierarchy. Not have to, but like he puts a sense of super seriousness in his um, in his gym, in his classes, because he's teaching an art that can seriously injure or kill somebody. And he says that, with because he's teaching such a serious thing, everything has to be serious. It's not fun and games, because we're training in weapons and other forms of combat. And, I think there like you said, there is a this distinction between different types of martial arts and sports, and combat sports is sports. No one's, for the most part, no one's gonna die in the ring for the most part. Fortunately, sometimes things happen, but and like you said, in a ring, it's controlled. In real life, anything goes. And so I really like your analysis and where you're coming from, because it does, like, it brings out a lot of these memories that I've had, or takes me to these memories.
Yeah, no, I think that's where we're at right now. Just kind of thinking about, observing these moments within the ring. And I think what we can really identify is how people read those moments. So I was reading um, the last McGregor fight as something that I caught as a pattern where he was able to call it right at the right moment, like stop it here. And some people will see that and critique him and say, oh, what a coward, what a wuss, whatever you want to disparage him with. I was saying, wow, what a great business person. He can distinguish the moment that he shifts from like, I'm going to get hurt. I don't need to get hurt. Think about this. Watch, for example, imagine you're in a race car and you don't have money to necessarily like just immediately replace the car, but there's moments where you're about to burn out the engine. You probably would just pull over. You're going to lose anyway, but you're like, no, the crowd wants me to light this engine on fire. No, you wouldn't do that. And if you did that, you hurt your own business. Do you have enough money to get another engine? And I'm trying to use a comparison of sports that maybe works, but that's what I feel was happening. And I think as a spectator, you think something different. You think in a real fight, you don't give up. And I was like, maybe in a real fight, but this is not a real fight. These are professionals fighting for our entertainment for money.
With that said, this has been the REROLL Multiple Martial Arts podcast where we discuss the intersections between martial arts, society, and culture. Until next time, peace.